Hello, and welcome to the October 2nd Sustainability Commission meeting. Meetings are broadcast live on Glendale TV, and where's my notes here? There. Okay. And on Spectrum Channel 6, AT&T UVerse, Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city webpage, glendalega.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, iOS, and Android devices using a free app called Cablecast and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. Meetings are also archived on the city website for viewing at any time at glendaleca.gov/agendas. Please call 818-548-4013 for program schedules. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Public comments on a specific agenda item will be taken when that item is discussed. If you have any question about matters on the agenda or requests for assistance, please contact the city clerk at 818-548-2090 during regular business hours. Could we have the roll call, please?
Roll call, Commissioner Chakarian, Commissioner Cartoonian,
Here.
Vice Chair Bazemore, Vice Chair Pinkerton,
Here.
Chairperson Werner,
Present.
Ex officio Phi,
Here.
Ex officio Park.
Here.
1A, Pledge of Allegiance.
Now please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
One B, Land Acknowledgement.
We would like to acknowledge that we are holding this meeting in the city of Glendale and Tovagnar, the home and traditional lands of the Gabrielino Tongva people. We would like to pay our respects to the elders, both past and present, and the Gabrielino Tongva communities who continue to be stewards of this land. Glendale's history did not begin with colonialism. Indigenous communities have lived in this area and have been stewards of this land for hundreds of years and numerous generations. The Gabrielino Tongva communities and cultures continue to grow and flourish. We encourage our audience to learn more about the Gabrielino Tongva tribe and the many indigenous communities in California and beyond. To get started, you can find a list of books and resources at Glendale or eglendalelac.org/Native American. Thank you. Next agenda item.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Bazemore has joined the dais. 1C, report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for the October 2, 2025 meeting of the Sustainability Commission was posted September 29, 2025 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. 2A, approval of minutes. Approval of the minutes of the Commission regular meeting held September 4, 2025.
Okay. Does anyone have, I have comments on the agenda. Does anyone else? Okay. Okay, I'm having problems with my computer, but it wasn't a ton, but I remember seeing there was a reference to xeriscaping with a Z. I'm having deja vu because I know I made this edit before, but it's been a while. The xeriscaping is spelled with an X, X-E-R-I, scaping. It's from the Latin xeros, or no, not Latin, from Greek, xeros meaning dry. So it's in reference to landscaping that is drought tolerant enough not to require a lot of water, whereas xeriscaping means like little or no landscaping of any kind. So there's a distinction there. And then there was a couple little typo things I can send to you later if you like. But okay, did anyone else have anything at all? Okay, so I'd like to move that we accept the minutes with the suggestions.
I'll second it.
Roll call, Commissioner Bazemore,
Yes.
Commissioner Cartoonian,
Yes.
Commissioner Chakarian,
Yes.
Vice Chair Pinkerton,
Yes.
Chairperson Warner.
Yes.
3, board member staff comments.
Does anyone have any comments that they'd like to start with? Yes.
Yeah, I actually do. So I talked with Tech Crew, Robotics, and Fashion Club about the Repair Cafe and if students would be willing to volunteer. And all of them, they were super excited. I did like a whole presentation. I was wondering if they would be willing to volunteer, and almost all of them did say yes. So I don't know the exact way that we're planning these events, but I was wondering if we could plan it by maybe like January for implementation, or if that's possible.
That would be dependent on library schedule, so it's something that is pending for their availability.
Yeah, and I also have something else. So my meeting with Public Works, I previously asked Mr. Jones if you were able to coordinate that. Is that something that's in the works, or?
You know, I apologize. I totally forget, but I will make sure I will do that tomorrow.
Right, thank you. And sorry, one more. So again, since I do science research, I was wondering if I could collect soil samples from Duke Majian Park. Because what we're trying to do is recycle invasive plant matter such as mustard seeds and we're trying to improve the soil quality, especially in Glendale. So we are wondering if we could collect samples, if that's something.
We have reached out. I will get a response to you about that, and I'll email you that response
Right.
once we get.
Thank you so much, yeah.
Hey, thank you. And Commissioner Pinkerton?
Yeah, just a few things. I think this is your appropriate time. I apologize for the hard copies. We'll pass these out. We have until next Tuesday to submit comments on California Senate Bill 54, which would have regulated single-use disposable plastic items, packaging. So the front page of the one sheet is background about SB 54, and the reverse side are comments that I drafted, and I submitted on behalf of the Glendale Environmental Coalition. Feel free to use these if you want. Individuals can submit comments. There's an online portal for that. Unfortunately, the law, in my opinion, has been gutted. The proposed regs will have basically no impact, but so that's what my letter says, is this will have no beneficial impact. The second sheet, if you want to share, this is something I did for the City of LA, but basically it's about SB 619, which the BYOB allows consumers to bring their own reusable food and beverage containers to restaurants. The restaurants are not compelled to use these, but they're allowed. So I think it's just helpful to get the word out. So maybe take photos of this and hand this out to restaurants that you patronize. Still haven't found a restaurant that knows about it, and I've yet to be turned down when I take my own containers in. So it's a good way. Compostable food containers are good, but very expensive to process. So if we can move more meals to reusables, I think that would be a really good thing. And is this a second or an additional agenda item where we comment on the items in progress? Is that dealt with separately from this? Okay, those are my comments. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else?
Sure. I think I just was reading on the way here in my ride share from work that the Intermountain Power Plant is shutting down next month. So I just wanted to highlight that as a pretty significant milestone for California. So that'll be the last kind of significant portion of coal-powered generation that we receive here in California. There's still some small amounts out there, but I think that's worth celebrating. I know Glendale is a purchaser of that power. I think some percentage of it, but it's of course a big LADWP project. Yeah, we are a very small portion of that. I will emphasize that, and have I think are set on transitioning away from that entirely. So anyways, that's all. Was there something else? I was reading as well about a pretty neat program that LADWP is also going to be doing, or it's just announced. It's called their LEAP program. I'm forgetting what it actually stands for, but it was mentioned on NPR this morning, and I was seeing it online as well. But it's a landscaping program that they are they are now offering for residents within Los Angeles. It's sponsored through a program from the state, and it's grant funded, which I thought is pretty cool. So I want to say this is from like a round of funding in 2022, so it's been quite a while, but I did want to just flag that as, unfortunately, I just don't have all the details with me today, but I thought it looked neat, and it would basically pay for your front lawn to be completely landscaped by the city. So this isn't just a turf rebate. This is like a full-on front yard makeover with some xeriscaping and irrigation and whatnot. So I think it would be pretty amazing and awesome if we could do that here in Glendale. Of course, if it would depend on the grant funds, but if anything like that comes across my desk or the Sustainability Office's desk, I would encourage us to maybe get an application in so we could offer that to citizens here in Glendale. So that's all.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that has been a barrier, I think, for a lot of people to replace their lawns is, they're not landscape designers and maybe they don't have the funds lying around to hire someone to come up with a design. And some of the ones that have been xeriscaped have looked really nice and others not so much. And so it would be really great if there was a program that was more turnkey than that, and where they help with design services and so on. That sounds like a great idea. Anyone else?
I'll just add on to that. So it is turnkey, which is pretty neat. They have a set of approved designs for each of the different water districts within Los Angeles. And the full title for the program is the Landscape Efficiency Assistance Program. So for those of you living in Los Angeles, worth checking out. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
David, while we're on the topic of lawns and irrigation, the rules in Glendale for commercial versus residential, what you're allowed, and what are the percentages, it's pretty confusing. I don't know if other cities are the same. So maybe a presentation on that topic. What is the difference between hardscape, landscape, desert landscape, turf? I think if I'm confused, and I tried to research it, I'm pretty sure our residents are confused as well.
Yeah, that is true. Like when you say turf, some people say that when they mean artificial turf, and some people say that when they mean grass. So it actually refers to ground cover, grass, that kind of thing. But there is confusion on whether you can put artificial turf in your front lawn, which it's my understanding you can. It just counts towards the hardscape rather than the landscape. But
I thought it was banned in residential front yards.
For residential, I think it's allowed. For commercial, there's a formula, so it's it's confusing.
Great, thank you. Is there some, how would we go about seeing if something like that could be done in Glendale, like something modeled on Los Angeles?
So we'd have to probably connect back with GWP and speak to them. Maybe they can come and give a presentation on the current programs. So the commission is aware of how those current programs work. How those current programs work. And then the commission could mention the LEAP program to GWP. I don't know what their funding is. I don't know what grants they've applied for. So we'd have to get their subject matter experts in to present to the commission on that.
It would be nice to hear from DWP to see how they're running that program, because that sounds really beneficial. So thank you, Commissioner Bazemore, for sharing that.
I have one more comment I forgot on the related topic. AB 1572, I think, was adopted 2 or 3 years ago. Basically, it's a water conservation measure. It bans the use of potable water for landscape irrigation for governments and public buildings, the first ones to comply, January 2027. So it's for non-functional lawns. So if it's not a playing field or if community events, et cetera, are not held on the lawn, that would be classified as non-functional. So that would apply, as far as I know, to the City Hall lawn here. So I would like to suggest, can we partner up with high schools or scout troops to take out the lawn? The law unfortunately never applies to residential, single-family homes, but it does apply, the next compliance after public and government buildings is commercial and industrial. So I would like to hear from GWP or whomever that January 1st, 2028 is the compliance date for commercial and industrial properties. It'd be nice to know what kind of outreach is happening, because basically you've got a year and a quarter, right, to comply for any government buildings in the city.
But if
public
commercial
buildings.
properties is 2028,
Yeah.
some of these folks need to start thinking of
Of course they
what
do,
they need
yes.
to do.
Yes.
Otherwise, 2028 is going to be around the corner and they're out of compliance.
It is, and if you don't have drip irrigation, if you want to go to xeriscape, or some of these facilities may have potential gray water sources, but not a lot, so it's not that much time to comply, but I've not seen any outreach about this, so I would like to hear from GWP, do they plan any outreach on this? Thanks.
And the other layer of confusion is we have residents and commercial properties that are technically in Glendale, but served by CVWD, Crescenta Valley Water District, the fringe customers. So what rule do they follow? CVWD's or Glendale's?
Well, this is state. This
Yeah,
is state, so it should apply to everybody.
Yeah, this applies to
Yeah.
both.
Yes, yeah.
But in terms of currently what you're allowed to do, good luck if you're in that area that, you're served by one, but you're in the other city.
Right. So they do need to start planning now, because again, what's your water source and what kind of plumbing adjustments do you have to make? And then it doesn't apply to single family, but it does apply to common HOA areas, so that may imply a change for some of those facilities. Thanks.
Well, it would behoove these commercial areas to be thinking of it now so that they could plant those drought-tolerant plants and have them get established, so that when they pull the plug on the irrigation later, that they have, a root system in place. So they really should be thinking about that like now, yeah, not, pushing it out to the last minute, so.
And this kind of bolsters the whole idea of the Lose the Lawn campaign, although it doesn't apply to single family. It's like, well, this will be the first foray into that.
Great. Okay, is that it for comments? Anyone else? Okay, so next item, please.
Do you have staff comments?
That's okay. Staff, sorry, I mean to skip you. I do have a question. Is your report going to include the status of the REACH code? Because I know that went back and forth a little bit with.
I'll be doing that later on at Sustainability Office updates.
Okay.
So, as usual, staff comments, or what we're trying to do now is go through the tracker update. So, the first one is request by Commissioner Pinkerton to identify properties, especially multifamily properties, that do not have AC. We have begun to do that. We've tried to look at a number of sources for information. The first source we're looking at is the Energy Information Administration, their CBEX data. But that's mainly commercial and high-rise residential, but hopefully we will be able to get something from there. We're also trying to get contact with the California Department of Housing and Community Development to see if they have any data on that. And then finally, through our permit system, to see if we capture that type of data. So those requests have been made and to start to see if that data exists. Then if that data exists, we'll bring it back to you. How comprehensive that data will be at this point, we do not know.
If I could just, a quick comment on that, because I know I run into this in LA all the time. It's like, I would like to see people rethink the permitting system to capture data that we need for a variety of uses, like AC units. You have trash chutes. I mean, just all sorts of things that have sustainability implications in my mind. I can give you the list I gave for LA, but it's basically, we're kind of operating in the blind. We don't really know a lot about the infrastructure necessarily in the city. So I think it would be great if the permitting offices could expand the questionnaires that you have to complete when you're getting a business license or occupancy, permits of any sort, just to gather data that we all need for different uses. Thanks.
Yeah, we'd have to speak to our permits department because I know they're trying to streamline and speed up the permitting process, so that may, so, yeah. And Commissioner Pinkerton also requested information on construction, demolition, diversion rates. And we have requested that data again, so hopefully we'll be able to present something at the next meeting. Commissioner Bazemore wants this commission to present to the City Council legislative items. We're having that discussion tonight. From Emmanuel Jones and Associates. The Climate Action Adaptation Plan grant information. We've just received information about the upcoming TCC grant, Transformative Climate Communities grant. So we're beginning to review that grant application and what would be required if the city were to apply for that grant. We're also reviewing the CAP grant metrics that was provided by Rincon Associates, and we've also connected the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, have a wealth of information on different grants. So basically what we're trying to do right now is go through the short-term measures of the Climate Action Adaptation Plan, the short-term measures that don't require a funding request from council and don't require us to speak to the different departments about their budgeting process, and then see what grants we can utilize to begin to implement some of those phase one items in the CAP. So that's the type of analysis we're doing right now. The use of recycled waters and medians. We got a little bit ahead of ourselves. We did get the signs, but the signs were old, so we're having to go through redoing the signs. So that is, the signs being designed right now, and they're going to go to our communications team in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. And then we anticipate actually replacing all the signs because there's some outside the library which are old and dented and everything. So hopefully a bigger, better signs to do that. So we are working on that. The single plastics, we are continuing to work on that. Nora's going to be connecting with hospitals and other campus-type operations to see about how we can continue to move forward in that. But in essence, we're still to do research on the single plastics in preparation, hopefully, to go back to council either later this year or early next year. And then finally, Vice Chair Pinkerton asked for estimates regarding green waste clippings by city-owned properties and requested data on the amount of potable water used for irrigation. We have made those information requests. I spoke to one of our staff today. The use of potable water or water used for irrigation on campus, they have that information. They should be getting to that shortly. As in where it is, but I'm not sure we have gallons. I'm not sure how much is metered at this point. But whenever we have it, we should be able to present that at the next commission meeting.
Flow meters, depending on how the old buildings are metered. So.
And that is my update on the tracker.
Thank you.
Question.
Any questions?
Question, David, about the cap. Am I recalling correctly that there was going to be a dashboard of some kind for the cap? Is that something that's been published? Is it available yet, or is it kind of in the works still?
So thank you for that question, Commissioner Bazemore. We've actually received 3 proposals from obviously 3 different organizations about helping us to develop that cap. We are asking our information technology department to review those proposals because how that dashboard fits in with any work that they're going to be doing on dashboards. So they should be getting that back to us shortly, and then we would have to enter in some type of agreement of contract for a company to develop the dashboard for us.
David, when you said the 3 organizations, these are consultants, I'm assuming? Or is it not?
No, well, yes, I guess, but that's what they do. They develop dashboards for cities. So one of them is based out of Boca Raton, and I don't know where the other 2 are based out of.
One is based out of Finland, the other one is based on the East Coast, and then one is based out of Florida. There are 3 different companies. 2 of them are actually also climate action adaptation companies. So they're very familiar with both ends of the work, but they also provide dashboarding services, and one of them also provides additional communication services.
I'm assuming, there's different costs for different companies, but in your decision-making process, are you also considering how easy their dashboards are for the layperson to read, to decipher?
Very good question. So yes, so that has been our point of conversation with them. A picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
So we want the dashboards to be very visual in the way they provide the information. A lot of the companies just provide like bar charts and stuff. So we've asked like if they can do more than that. So there's the visual aspect that we've asked them to look at, but there's also the collection of data aspect. So as of next year, we're going to have to do another greenhouse gas inventory because we need to do that every 5 years. So we're working with them, how can they work with GWP to pull that data in so they can make that greenhouse gas inventory assessment relatively easy for staff and off time. So then we can provide that update on the dashboard. So yes, those are 2 critical components.
Okay.
That
I'm
we're
glad
looking at.
that the visual aspect of it is being taken into consideration because those of us that are in the industry or city, we look at it on a daily basis. But for a resident that is going to visit the site a few times a year, it needs to be intuitive. It needs to be easy to interpret.
And particularly since we have so many languages spoken in Glendale, having it be visual would be very helpful. Okay, any other questions or comments about the?
Did you want to give an update on the film?
I can do that now.
Okay.
We do have one event coming up in October, which is going to be an environmental film series. The first screening is Plastic Earth. We're going to have expert panelists join us. One of them is Vice Chair Pinkerton. It will be in Grandview Library on October 22nd from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And I will be asking the ex officios to help us advertise this event.
Just one comment, if it's not too late. I've been doing a lot of research on zero waste recently, and I think a lot of waste generation in general is tied to behavior. So I don't know if it's too late, but to think about inviting like a psychology professor or somebody from GCC just to talk about the whole phenomenon of consumerism, possibly?
So far, the panelists are yourself, one member of a business owner who they have a zero waste store, and then the third is pending. Hopefully, they're going to be a GCC teacher. I've reached out to both the environmental department and the psychology to see who's available.
Okay. So, do you have anything else to add or report-wise? Okay.
No further comments, Chairperson.
Okay. Thank you. Next item.
For oral communications, discussions limited to items within the jurisdiction of the Sustainability Commission. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Sustainability Commission members may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The matter may be referred to staff for investigation and report. We have no callers and no comment cards.
Okay, so public comment period is closed. Next agenda item.
5 action items. We have no action items. So 6, report information. 6A, NASA orbiting carbon observatory missions.
So I know the Commission was looking forward to hearing from NASA on this program that have, but unfortunately due to the government shutdown, staff there have been instructed just to stick to core activities. So, but hopefully they'll come back to us next month if this situation is resolved.
Thank you. Yes. I know it gives us more time to talk it up and get more people to come and watch it.
Could I ask who was supposed to speak? Was it a panel or a couple people or just one person?
It was 2 scientists. The head scientist, Abhishek, he
Okay.
was going to be speaking.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you. yeah, we hope, I'm excited to have them back, but I think we all understand why. It makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, let me know when, I mean, we don't know what's happening with everything, but yeah, when it's scheduled, let me know. I would like to try to reach out to my network and get people tuning in or coming in person to hear that. Thank you.
6B, legislative update.
So, Chairperson Werner, I know Commissioner Bazemore requested this item to come in front of the Commission. So, we're delighted to hear today to have Kira Ross from Emmanuel Jones and Associates, who is our consultant based up in Sacramento. I think to talk about the legislative platform, but also to respond to questions from Council about the timing, the processes, and everything. So, with that, I'll ask Ms. Ross to go ahead and talk to the Commission. Thank you.
Fantastic. Good evening. I'm Kira Ross with Emmanuel Jones and Associates, and we are the city's Sacramento-based legislative advocates here in Sacramento. Wanted to talk a little bit about what's been going on in Sacramento this year. We ended the first year of the 2-year legislative session on September 13th. The legislature introduced about 2,400 bills this year, with about 800 of those going to the governor for his signature or veto. From an environmental standpoint, it was again a year with very significant change. In June, the legislature passed and the governor signed the budget with 2 very significant implementing trailer bills, AB 130 and SB 131 combined. They exempt residential housing projects from the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA as it's known, and suspend changes to the state and local building codes relating to residential projects for the next 6 years, with some limited exceptions. And I would note that the suspension of the state and local building codes was a controversial move by the Assembly Speaker, intended to try and suppress housing costs. Environmental groups were particularly frustrated that it limits the ability for cities and counties to do stronger than state mandated energy efficiency building codes, called REACH codes, unless they were already in place this last summer. And I would note that this moratorium only applies to residential buildings, so building codes that apply elsewhere are still moving forward. For instance, the 2025 Cal Green Code is moving forward and will be in place on January 1. We also saw legislation on a wide range of issues, but I'll touch on a few of the more notable ones. Early in the year, we saw 2 bills that were reintroductions from previous years that would have made large fossil fuel companies financially responsible for damages from climate change related events like wildfire and droughts. Dubbed the Polluter Pay Climate Superfund Act of 2025. The 2 bills were both held by policy committees, so they did not move forward this year. We anticipate we'll probably see a reintroduction next year. And probably the most significant package of bills this year came together in literally the last few days of the legislative session and extends the state's cap and trade program, renames it to Cap and Invest through 2045. The program, which was set to expire in 2030, had seen lagging revenue from the associated carbon auction program. So there was a push this year to extend the program for another 15 years. AB 1207 extended the program, while SB 840 reestablishes funding from the state's Greenhouse Gas Emissions Fund to various climate-related programs. And I'll just note, you'd mentioned the Transformational Communities Program. That program was refunded under 840, so that will continue into the future with ongoing funding. Along with the changes to cap and trade program, the package also included legislation to allow utilities to enter Western energy market, sometimes called pathways. That's very important for GWP, and they may be one of the entities that will ultimately enter that new market. The governor still has another week and a half until October 13th to sign or veto legislation that is on his desk. And right now, there's about 650 to 700 bills still on there. Watching a couple of different bills, there's some bills on cleaning products that contain glitter or microbeads that create problems for the environment. There's also a couple of bills on PFAS. One of those was vetoed yesterday, but another one is still in play. And then outside of legislation, you touched on the implementation of SB 54. I think someone noted that the deadline for the 45-day comment period is next week on I believe it's the 7th. And then they'll move forward with the formal rulemaking. That's expected to be in place in January. And then for most of next year, they're going to have a lot of conversation about what's called the PRO plan, or the Producer Responsibility Organization Plan. And that plan will have to be adopted and put in place by early 2027. There's still some controversy, although I don't know that we'll see cleanup legislation or not next year. So with that, I'll stop and see if there are questions.
Thank you very much. Do any of the commissioners have any questions at this point?
I have a question. You mentioned the Western energy market and Glendale Water and Power being able to benefit from it. Can Glendale Water and Power benefit from it without joining CAISO?
Yes, so GWP is part of something called the LA Balancing Authority.
Yes.
And if that balancing authority ultimately joins the Western regional market, then they would be a part of it. But that's a couple years off, and that decision has not been made at this point. And I should just say the legislation authorizes the formation and California entering this entity. It doesn't actually do anything beyond that.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Just one quick one, and we may have asked this of you last time you were here. Do you recommend positions to the council on these things? And I'm just wondering, generally, the policy for comment letters, how do those start? Do those really typically originate within city departments, or is that something you're ever involved in? Thanks.
Sure. So it's a couple of ways that we get there. I will step back and just say my role is through the city manager's office, but certainly at the direction of the city council. And so positions can either come from city staff to the extent that maybe they get that from outside entities or association groups or things like that that might recommend a position. I will also recommend positions to the city manager's office, depending on my read of the bill, and if I think there's some reason that the city would be impacted by a particular piece of legislation. And then it can also come through the city manager's office from council members may want to take a position on a bill. It could come from outside groups that are asking if the city is going to get involved. So there's a number of ways that they can get there.
Thank you.
Chair Werner, if I could add, the Commission on the Status of Women does review the slate of bills and does make recommendations which are brought to the City Council for consideration, and then direction is given, actions taken, direction is given on whether to support those positions and to forward communications to the legislature or to the governor. That's another route.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you again, Ms. Ross, for the update. That was really helpful. It's great to get an update from someone from Sacramento who's very much in the weeds with all of this. And some of these I've been tracking closely as well, and learning about a few others tonight. That's really helpful. So I think I don't have any specific questions about the legislation right now at this time, but as Mr. Jones said, I had brought this item to the commission and with the intent of us coming up with, I guess I had proposed the idea of something similar to what the Commission on the Status of Women does, where we would have a legislative platform, if you will, as a commission, and recommend bills, supporting certain bills within the California legislature. So I don't know what maybe David, I forget what was on the staff report for this specific item, but I think if we tonight, if this is possible, or at a future agenda meeting, it would be great for us to kind of put together that platform, if you will, so that we could then make those recommendations based on what's presented to us. So maybe would someone be able to kind of explain to us about how it works with the Commission on the Status of Women, how it works for them and their recommendations?
So, yes, so we can do that, but I assume you'd want a list of what is happening in Sacramento to get that list in front of you to start with, and then review all those bills. So I don't know whether the consultant can help with that, because I've said the legislative process has just ended.
Right.
So I don't know how that whole process, when the next one starts, when the information will be available to present to the commission. So to me, logically, that would be the seemed way to go. It's like get the information in front of you, you review the bills, and then if you have specific questions on some of those bills, what they mean, to have that conversation with Ms. Ross, and then from that, I assume you'll be able to formulate a position of those bills that you do or do not want to support. To me, seems to be the logical way to proceed. But I'll let Ms. Ross.
Sure. So I do work with the Commission on the Status of Women, and the legislature is a 2-year cycle. They typically work between January and September. They are in their recess period right now, and they come back on January 5th, and then they will be in session from January 5th until the 1st of September 2026. Typically in early part of the year, usually January, February, most bills typically have an introduction deadline of about February 15th, so we don't really have a good read on what bills are out there until about that point. But after that point, at least for the Commission on the Status of Women, I will sit down with city manager staff and with commission staff, and we'll get a list of bills that we think might be eligible bills to look at, and we'll sort of talk through that, and then that list goes to the commission for their review. So certainly happy to put together a list of bills that have been introduced or that we think are about to be introduced, and once they're there, we can get you a list of relevant environmental related bills.
Just if I may, if we're going to do this, it should be, not in lieu of what the city manager does, in addition to what the city manager does. If there's bills that the city manager says, I refer to the commission so that they can review and come up with a position for the city. But otherwise, some of these bills are, our comment, by the time they're finalized, the language, you need to react really fast. And for us to say, well, agendize it next month, and we'll formulate a letter, it's not going to be fast enough. That's why you have the city manager system where, he or she can react much faster. But if there's bills that the city manager would like to refer to this commission so that we can put in our expertise and research and whatnot, I think that's okay. But to say that we're going to take every environmental bill or sustainability bill, that would not be doable through the current setup, meeting once a month.
I think it would involve a lot of homework, maybe something that there's a subcommittee from the commission doing, like a couple of people kind of get together and bounce ideas off from each other. But these do seem to, there's all the back and forth as it's being considered, and the horse trading that goes on and so on. But then once it's kind of final, then it's like, it can happen pretty quickly.
Like Kara said, initially, the first couple of months, there's a lot of placeholder bills that are just there waiting for language to be inserted at the tail end of the process. And in some cases, that process gets finalized literally 48 hours before. Sometimes they count the number of hours, and so we cannot add, another bureaucratic process on top of what's already difficult to comment on a bill or not. But if something is early on, the bill is finalized or the language is, we'll be more than happy to, research it and take a position on it. Just know that that position evolves. And that's why, for example, when Cal Cities supports a bill, a lot of times, by the time they take a neutral position or support a bill, at the end, it's completely different.
So if I may, I know we're going to probably start the work plan programming soon for next year. So maybe during that process, the commission identifies key areas that they're interested in, and then we can provide those key areas to the consultants, so it's not so like wide, and then they can just like focus on builds, whether it's like the plastics or whatever it is. That's just an option that the commission may want to consider as we go through that development process.
I think that's a really good suggestion, but I do have a question for Ms. Ross and our city attorney possibly. So how does this work? Do you have a spreadsheet of bills that you're tracking? Are those sortable by topic areas? I mean, what is your communication with the city manager? What's the formatting of this whole process?
Sure. So there's a number of legislative tracking programs, and I have one of them. And so I track, at my end, I'm tracking probably 1,500, 2,000 bills. But I can track it by just about any subject area. I can break it down to plastics or, air quality or water quality or solid waste or hazardous waste. I can break it down a multitude of ways. And typically, I have a list of bills that the city is following. I will update them on a weekly basis. Anytime that there are major amendments made to that bill, I'm going to send that out to staff to take a look at and have conversations with staff. And so might be helpful for me to also note that for the the Commission on the Status of Women, we pick a pretty narrow field of bills, and we try to find ones that are pretty specific to those issues, aren't going to be these sort of giant, overwhelming bills, and ones that are that they can really tackle. And an example of ones that are tough are, the big bill on climate change and on cap and trade program. That bill came together in the last 7 days of the legislative session, and we had some of the language, and we were able to share that with staff at both the city and GWP staff. But the final negotiations happened very quickly at the end. So it's helpful to do it's easy for me to do a list early in the year and kind of keep you updated in terms of where things are and bills that might be particularly good to weigh in on.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's the idea. I understand that there are things that will come together very quickly at the end, and we won't have an opportunity there. And I don't want this to be any kind of replacement of the work that's already being done by staff. I think if anything, we just want to kind of help add a little bit to the conversation, and with the goal of this going to council and them having again their opportunity to weigh in on some of these kind of more specific narrow bills that we've identified. So I suppose at a future meeting, then we should spend time discussing as a commission what those narrow subject areas are, or relatively narrow. I mean, sustainability is pretty broad, as we all know. Just even looking at the cap, that's pretty significant variety of items in there. So I don't know. What other thoughts maybe from the commission on this? Do you?
Well, I think it's, the turnaround time is definitely an issue for a group that only meets monthly, but I think having something be on our radar, because certainly as individuals, we have the right to comment. I've done that before when there's a bill that's being considered. There's a portal on the Sacramento's legislative webpage, and you can click on there and say what you think and hope that somebody read it and will think about that when they're making their decision. But do you feel like sustainability is in the loop at all? Because I don't feel like we're hearing about the ones that are maybe like you're talking with the city manager, but how are we being, like, is he maybe thinking, I'm going to speak to council directly and we'll figure this out? Or is he deciding like, sustainability should really weigh in on this? Because I haven't been seeing that kind of pipeline, so maybe that's where the opportunity is to just have the city manager, be reminded that, we're here to weigh in on things like this and to help shoulder the load of some of these things, to try to, do our own, research and try to consider these matters that affect the city's sustainability goals.
Chair Werner, members of the commission, another resource that the city uses is CalCities. They have an environmental policy committee whose goal it is to review the thousands of bills and determine which ones are relevant to environmental issues. And our legislative staff, and as well as Ms. Ross, are aware of that resource. I did at one point serve on that environmental policy committee. So there is quite a bit of information available on the CalCities website that would be useful for the purpose of culling down the amount of information that's out there and determining which categories might be relevant or of concern to the Sustainability Commission.
Question for Kara and even David. Kara, for example, the Western Energy bill that you mentioned, did Glendale Water and Power, and they have their own commission, did they take a position on it, or did we just go with the position, the support that the CMUA had given towards the bill?
They did not take an individual position. So CMUA did take a position, but Glendale Water and Power did not, nor did the city.
Okay. So on something like this bill that was mentioned, to be honest with you, if Glendale Water and Power and their commission is not taking a position on it, I don't think we need to inject ourselves into that process. It's a strictly energy-related bill. We're a member of a statewide, lobbying organization for munis like Glendale, and they've taken a position. And that commission is staying silent, and I think we should as well. We should limit ourselves to things that don't already have a commission looking at it.
It would be helpful to have that visibility, because right now we don't know what they think of these things, and there are times when we're not necessarily on the same of the same mind as the GWP, for example. So, or can maybe think outside the box in ways that hasn't necessarily been considered by GWP. But I just feel like there needs to be a little bit more of a flow of information coming to this commission, like to Commissioner Bazemore's point. We're finding out about things like, if we find out at all, it's very last minute, and this is the biggest opportunity to make changes, like at the state level, and because Glendale can do everything at once, but it's not going to move the needle tremendously on climate change. It's going to take much bigger thing than that, and the more that we can all be apprised of what's going on in the city, the better. So I don't know if it's something as simple as a report, or something like a subscription sort of, where we get announcements when something, there's some tickler that comes up on your computer. It says, oh, there's something that has something to do with sustainability that I should look at, and so that we can educate ourselves on what's going on at the state level, and be more informed and inform our networks, and take action if necessary.
A quick follow-up or comment, probably not so much for Ms. Ross, but let's say like this, I keep forgetting the number, the AB 1527, potable water uses for irrigation. How does that work its way through the city process? This is something obviously businesses should know about. The internal city departments should know that that lawn outside is going to have to be removed unless they switch to a different water source. What's our process for getting this information out into the community? Does the city publish online updates? This is of interest to local businesses. Do we have mailing lists? Because I think that's a big problem in almost every city, is there's this gap. There's this information out there, this bill gets adopted, but getting that word out, like AB 619 is reusable foodware. County did virtually no outreach on that. It just, that information seems to reside in little pockets that it doesn't easily get disseminated. So I'm just curious, do we interact regularly with the public affairs officer for the city? Do we issue press releases on this? Do we issue emails to trade associations? Or there are a lot of trade associations for facility managers, for example. What's our outreach?
So, Commissioner Pinkerton, we do have a communications team that resides within the city manager's office. So you probably have to talk to them how they approach this, but it's my understanding they're more focused on communication from the city itself out to the community, as opposed to commission on statewide bills. So their bandwidth, is only so much, but we'd also have to, part of the communications team, to have a weekly or monthly meeting with communication officers from the other departments. So we can ask that question and see what type of response we get and come back to the commission with a response. In general, as part of this discussion, as Chairperson Werner was saying, I think there's an opportunity for us internally to go back and speak to the staff members from the Commission of the Service of Women, CSW Commission, speak to them how they effectively get that information to their commissioners, and then we can adopt and follow that process. So we will have those discussions between now and the next meeting. Then maybe at the next meeting we can come and provide that information to the commission of how they effectively get this information to the commission members.
Right, because even if it's a state bill, it still impacts local businesses. They still have to comply. Like with the potable water, it impacts Glendale because hopefully it'll be reduced consumption of potable water and generation of less green waste. So there are implications, local implications. A lot of these things for example, could save the city money. So it's in a lot of these are unfunded mandates, but again, there are potential cost savings there if we get the word out and more businesses comply.
I mean, yes, and I don't know. I mean, the city getting information out on every bill, I don't know whether we can, I don't think we can do that. So it's something that we'll have to talk about. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
So you said cap and trade it's extended 20 years and now it's called cap and invest. What exactly is different between cap and trade and cap and invest? Is it just the name?
No, it's so it was extended 15 years. So it's set to, the original law was set to expire in 2030. This one now will go to 2045. They're going to rejigger some of the components, and without really deeply getting into the weeds on it, it will extend the current program. And then they're going to add they're going to move some of the allocations and allowances, and a lot of it has to do with the market component of it. But as it pertains to local government and local, like publicly owned utilities, so like a GWP, it protects the existing allowances that GWP gets, but for electric customers. But for, say, gas customers, they're going to take away the free allowances, and we're going to convert those to electric customers so that there'll be more incentive for people to get away from the use of natural gas and moving more, especially at the residential level, moving to all electric appliances in the future. And there are a number of other provisions related, as I said, to the actual carbon market side, where they're going to make some changes.
Thank you. What about do you also follow like the code changes to like Cal Green, like what's going to be new in this code cycle?
That one I am not as familiar with. I did get involved as it applied to AB 306, which was the bill that ultimately got merged into the budget package that puts a moratorium on state and local building codes as it applies to residential buildings for the next 6 years. but I'm not very familiar with the individual changes on the Cal Green Code going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Did the city take a position at all on the Make Polluters Pay bill, the legislation
On the
around
two
that?
bills.
Mhm.
Yeah, they did not. No, and those, actually, those died quite early in the process. They were
Yeah.
both stopped by about May, before the first deadline. They did not take a position on them. There were two bills, actually, one by Senator Menjivar and one by Assembly Member, I'm just pulling up my notes to get you the actual bill numbers.
That's okay.
But there were two bills, and I do anticipate that they'll be back in the future.
Okay. I think it was Don Otis, Assemblymember Don
Addis,
Otis,
yep.
or Addis, thank
Yep,
you.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Uh-huh,
Okay.
thank you.
Do you have a sense of like what percentage of bills that the city council takes a stand on?
Overall of the number of, so here's a couple of just sort of numbers. There were, I think it was 2,385, so almost 2,400 bills were introduced. About a third of those, so about 800, will get to the governor's desk. So it's a pretty small number. I think the city took positions on probably about 15 bills, which is fairly typical. I think that's about right. So about 15 bills this year.
And those were positions that were directed by the city manager's office, right? Those weren't from council?
Those are the positions from, yes, ultimately the positions are from council. So they're either approved directly by council, bills that go before council, or they are approved via the legislative platform. One of the two.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I assume only the council is authorized to take a position on a statewide measure. Am I correct?
Well, it's either council directly, or it's, sometimes cities have a legislative platform, then they give that authority. If a bill is under that platform, then the city manager can take that position. But ultimately, yes, it's the decision of the council.
All right, so the city manager would merely present the bill and perhaps make a recommendation, and then council would review that and decide whether to take a stand, and if so, what the stand would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so just thinking through this still some more. So as part of the piece of the puzzle that we might be missing here is that council hasn't put together a legislative platform for sustainability related bills. Is that the case, or is there, you've mentioned, Carrie, you've mentioned a legislative platform for the city of Glendale. Is that kind of all encompassing for
It's
all
all
city
encompassing.
matters? Okay.
Yeah. And I believe I'd have to go back and look at it, so I can't speak specifically to what sustainability provisions, but it typically is an all-encompassing document.
Okay, and it spells out kind of just general, is it just broad language like the city supports, a greener city, a more sustainable city kind of
Yes.
thing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, I don't know, David, if you have enough to go off of this for maybe a future meeting, but if we could, I think sounds like some interest from the commission to put together a kind of set of bills potentially modeling after the Commission on the Status of Women. So maybe for a future meeting, that would be a great,
I think we
great
have some
item.
direction
Okay.
that we can work with.
Yeah, see, our commission is probably the newest one. We've only been around 5 years. This is our 5th year or so. I think sometimes it may just, be a habit. It hasn't been formed yet as far as like, oh, this should go to sustainability. So just trying to figure out how to sort of integrate into some of these processes of, getting advice. Like we're an advisory group, so we don't get to, vote to change something. We can only make recommendations to council, but I think we could make more recommendations and more timely ones if we were in the loop a little bit earlier on some of these things that come from Sacramento.
Just one other question, Zone Zero, is the city taking a position on that? I know it's still in the development process, but seems like it could be very, very costly for homeowners, if I read it
Yeah,
correctly.
they have not taken a position. The bill passed a couple of years ago, and now they are in sort of the process of implementation and trying to get it up and running. But that's not something that the city took. I don't believe they took a position on when the bill was going through. Certainly have not in the last couple of years.
That's the bill regarding how close trees, et cetera, can be to a structure for fire prevention, but as what I just skimmed it very briefly, but it seems like it requires removing vegetation that
Yeah.
shades and, yeah, even trees that are slow fire.
It's it's a 5-foot clearance around the edge of a building of a home. And so it does allow for certain kinds of vegetation and certain kinds of trees and things, but it would require, for instance, if you had your a wood stack right up against your house, or if you had wood planters and things like that, anything flammable within 5 feet radius around the home is problematic and needs to be removed.
Yeah, that's a good example of one that I think people would like to know more about and to consider how that affects them. Like a lot of people, we have a lot of hillside homes here too, so they have decks so that they can provide horizontal walking surfaces when they step out of their houses. And so those tend to be made of combustible materials. So yeah, I think people need more clarity on what that means and what could, are there workarounds or exemptions and things like that. That would be useful for sure. Okay, was that your whole presentation, or were we just pausing? I wasn't
Nope,
sure.
that was it.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Did anyone else have any other questions, or is there anything you'd like to add or summarize or anything? Or
Nope, I'm great. Thank you.
okay.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
well, thank you. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Kira. Next is sustainability office updates.
Chairperson Mona, you asked about the AC to heat pump reach code. So we did go to council regarding AC to heat pump reach code. It failed to pass with a 2-2 vote. So we actually will be going back to council. Originally, we we're going to go to council trying to pass this reach code based on the 2022 California Building Code. That avenue is not open to us anymore, so we're going to have to potentially adopt the REACH code as part of the 2025. As the city adopts the 2025 California Building Code, we would then, once the city's adopted that, we would then go to City Council after that adoption for them to adopt the ACT heat pump REACH code. Ms. Ross was talking about the exemptions, so if a city has a general plan, and in that general plan there has been mention of climate mitigation programs regarding such things as heat pumps, as long as that's referenced in that plan, we can then make that reference in our application to the California Building Commission as we adopt the REACH code. So that is the route that we're going to go and take, because we have made reference in the safety element of the general plan, specifically about utilizing two-way heat pumps for heating and cooling. So that is in the plan, so we can make reference to that plan. So hopefully, we're working on the report now. Hopefully we're going to go to council in November with that ACT heat pump REACH code.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I was following the meeting where they were talking about how the deadline had come and gone for the 2022 code, and they're hoping to bring it back at the end of the year, but in a different form, and it wasn't like completely clear what that meant, but it did seem like the language needs to be refined a little bit more so people understand. Like I've had people ask, like, if they want to put a split unit for their home office or bedroom or something, so they don't have to air condition the whole house while they're trying to sleep at night. Would that trigger this sort of thing? So, and I wasn't sure, so I thought I'll look into that, because it doesn't address like that kind of thing, like something that's separate from the overall like central air, if it's a separate thing. You know, do you know if that would trigger it?
So potentially the proposed REACH code will be triggered if you are replacing your ducted AC system, or if you're installing an AC system, a new AC system, and you need to install ducts too. At that time, the proposed ordinance would take effect. If you're doing a repair to your current AC system, the ordinance would not take effect. If you're going to install a mini split system in an individual room, I don't believe the proposed ordinance would, I don't think the ordinance would take effect for that. I think it's the replacement of the entire system or the installation of the new entire system.
I think that needs to be clarified a little bit, and so, because I was trying to find, I've thought about putting one of those in myself, so I'm looking, and I'm just like, oh, you know, and then the part about what's required in terms of permits and things in order to do some of these things, and like what happened to like someone whose AC goes out during a heat wave, like what is the anticipated amount of time, you know, for a permit application during said heat wave. And so, I mean, it would already be hard to find someone, you know, to service the one that they have, but if it turns out they have to replace it, what does that look like? And I wasn't seeing that part of it, and just kind of like the how it would work, I guess, because sometimes people say, oh yeah, that's great, let's do that, and then they find out later it's like, oh, it means you have to do this and this and this, and then they're like, oh, I probably wouldn't have voted for it then, or that sort of thing. So I know some people were, you know, a little bit uneasy about having the city tell them what kind of utility equipment or, you know, what type of appliances they can have in their house. So if we're selling this to the public, it needs to be palatable and something that they can understand the constraints of, or lack of constraints, or like what freedoms do they have, you know, is important to, like, you know, the split units that are become so popular, that sort of thing.
David, what I've noticed, by the way, I love heat pumps, you know, but one of the things, the constraints that I've noticed is the workforce. Whether it's HVAC, you know, contractors or plumbers for water heating, they just, they know what they know, and what they know is 20-year-old technology. And if somebody's at the tail end of their career, they're not going to go out and invest in new equipment and new knowledge. And so one of the plans, and we're not a big enough city like LA or a small city that we can't. We're right in between. We should be offering some sort of classes and bring in, you know, teach the contractors that are going to serve Glendale. I've noticed that as a bottleneck, even when, you know, I do, you know, maintenance work at the house, and I ask contractors, do you know how to install? There's very few that say, yeah, I have experience. Most of them, they don't want to venture in new technology. So if we do mandate this, you know, maybe a couple of classes, both for HVAC and plumbers, and we can partner with other organizations out there. So cost-wise for the city, it'd be minimal.
I was going to say, for what it's worth, when I worked on the LADWP solar program, the residential rooftop, when it was first getting off the ground, we mandated that the homeowner had to use an installer who had gone through a training program that we offered. We brought in an outside consultant. So if you didn't, you were not eligible for the rebates, just because because it was involving both the utility and roofing inspectors, and people, it was all over the map as far as the quality and the types of insulation, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how we dealt with that. So maybe Glendale could piggyback on if DWP still has any, if they have a program of any sort for heat pumps, et cetera, other electrification devices, mandate that somebody has to complete Edison or DWP training.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Cortuni, because I was thinking of that later after last month's meeting, that we talked about shortages of materials, but also shortages of qualified installers is yet another bottleneck to people being able to replace a non-functioning air conditioning unit. So that is a real problem.
I'm sorry, is IBW not offering training in this?
I know Edison offers both in-person and virtual training, and the in-person's in Irwindale, the virtual, it could be anywhere. So, you know, we could partner with IOUs.
Well, like the leaf blowers, we had all the outreach and explaining to people how that could work and so on. So that does seem to be there, like there's an opportunity. This is a lot more complicated than that, though. But you know, the whole like certified installer program, the manufacturers, there could be partnerships with the ones that make these, because obviously they want more certified installers running around putting in their equipment. So that's that is something we maybe could look at during this downtime between the building codes. But do you still, I thought the late October timeframe sounded a little optimistic as far as bringing back the REACH code for that.
So we have to follow the city's schedule of when they're going to update the triennial update of the building code. So I think they're going to go to council in November for that. So we can't do anything until the city's adopted the update, as you well know. So as soon as they've done that, we'll probably go to the following meeting. So it'll be
So it wouldn't be rolled into the update. It would
Right.
be like an amendment to
Right.
to the ordinance. Okay.
And to your point, Commissioner Cartoonian, about support mechanisms, yes, that is something that we are thinking about how to do that. We actually have an external group that tries to provide us information on that type of stuff. So yes, we recognize that. And then I think in general, as the California Building Code gets updated, I think heat pumps are mandated anyway for new construction and new additions as it is. So I assume more and more contractors will become aware of the technology.
I had a follow-up question on that, Mr. Jones. Regarding the workforce being able to install these systems, do we have any data on the workforce able to repair these systems? So imagine we do roll out these heat pumps and we have a very hot day and they go out, and do we have a sense of the capacity to repair these when we need to? Or is there a concern that there could be a kind of a heat health problem in a time where you wouldn't want it without the workforce to be able to help out?
That is an excellent question. No, we do not know that at this point, but that is something that we can try to research and understand. To Commissioner Cartoonian's point, what the knowledge is of the technology out there. So, but no, we do not know.
Excellent, thank you.
Just a follow-up question, just to refresh my memory. I was talking with my AP environmental science teacher actually about this, because I kind of talked with her before coming to the commission, just so I can kind of grasp what's like the concepts before I come here. But one thing that she commented on about the heat pumps is the specific heat pumps that we're mandating, are they geothermal or air source heat pumps? They're air source, right? Air source, yeah. I just wanted to refresh my memory. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, geothermal would depend on where you were. You have to have a geothermal source below the ground and so on, and I don't think Glendale.
She was just saying like that's going to be crazy to implement, and so yeah, just.
Yeah, and issues that come up like that they're noisier. I've heard, than what people are using now. So it would be, people are more nervous about things that they don't have experience with, or, so I think it would help homeowners not be a little bit, because it is directed at homeowners and not multifamily, so maybe some outreach about what this would look like, demonstrations, that kind of thing that could help them, see what they look like. Is it a smaller footprint that might be appealing to homeowners, or always trying to, find, squeeze a few extra square feet out of their side yard or backyard or what rooftop or what have you. So that could be beneficial too. And just, knowing that somebody's not going to put a really noisy thing just outside their bedroom window, I think. But we want to try to not keep residents up at night, right? Well, did anyone else have any?
I had a question. So if we make these revisions to the ordinance, we make these clarifications, or perhaps we include provisions about training installers of this technology, would that mean that this ordinance goes back before this commission to suggest or not suggest, recommend or not recommend to City Council? A recommendation stands?
No, we've already been to City Council, so this ordinance would not come back to this commission. It'll go straight to City Council.
Even if we were to amend it? Okay.
Well, unless we decided we wanted to rethink it, but I don't think we're going that direction. So, but that was a great question, because, it's going to possibly come back a little bit different than before, and it's an amendment to a different code. And was that the conclusion of your report? Okay. Well, thank you very much. And next agenda item, please.
Next item is 8, adjournment.
Okay, would anyone like to move to adjourn?
I will move to adjourn.
I'll second.